I'm a pop culture geek.
And I'm a data guru.
Together we're Data Decoded. Welcome to Data Decoded, where we bring you the coolest data guru around, Deanna McFadder, founder of Nachi, to decode the data and technology behind some of our favorite stories in movies, TV shows, and comic books. Deanna, how is it going?
No, it's going great, Michael.
Tonight's episode, we decode, you could call it a movie, you could call it a comic book, I don't think he ever made it to TV. We will talk about Marvel Comics' Iron Man, and more specifically, we want to decode the human interface and robotics elements to the concept of Iron Man. For anyone who has not seen the 2008 movie or has not read the comic book, Robert Downey Jr. in the movie plays Tony Stark. In the comic book, it is just Tony Stark, who builds himself an artificial heart and connects to a artificial suit, a robotic suit, an iron suit, for lack of a better term, becomes Iron Man, the superhero out there crusading and also tackling boardrooms and board meetings and just, being one of the faces of the Marvel universe. So obviously we kind of talked about it. Let's start with the human interface. Deanna, can you decode that for us? How close are we to interfacing with robotics and AI technology in the way that we see it in the Iron Man movies and comic books?
Yeah, Michael, happy to. We're actually really close. It's happening in some ways already.
Mm-hmm.
The heart, I don't think has been done. Where we take the heart as kind of the life source, but we're definitely doing this with prosthetics, and having someone's brain, like what they're thinking, control their prosthetic hand. And obviously we're able to do this in robotics, for sure, which is essentially that's the intersection. And we're playing with it in our organs as well, where there's a lot of technology already happening with valves, with very simple things that need to happen within the body that we can use sort of the computing power of our brain to control. And so that is already very, very true, tested. People are experiencing this. A lot of people with degenerative disease, same thing, right? Where their brain is still intact. Maybe they can't speak. Maybe they can't, they don't have the use of certain things, but the brain is controlling even things in their room, right? Like it's bringing water to them. It's with a robot sort of in place. So we're really, I would say we're already in this. The fantastical power that Tony Stark has in Iron Man, we're not there yet. But the core concept from a data point of view and being able to program something that goes through our body as sort of the network, and ends in powering some machinery that is connected to us either because we're wearing it or because it's been surgically connected is entirely possible and happening today.
One of the central themes of the movie, let's just take the movie for example, is the idea of new technology for war. And obviously, Tony Stark is a billionaire in the movie, but he's an engineer and he is held captive because they want him to build these weapons of war for them. Can you decode how close are we to this level of weaponized warfare? And specifically, I know we're there with drones right now to an extent where, it's being kind of, are human beings going to be the ones actually fighting wars in the coming years?
No, definitely not. And again, there's, me being a veteran, in the military, there's the pros and cons of this. Like, I don't want more people to die, right? So I like the fact that we've gotten smart enough to not need to have so many people at the kind of front. Not getting into the morality of if we should or shouldn't be at war with certain things, but like the idea of not having a human, in harm's way, is very appealing, right? Like, it's like, I love that idea.
Yeah.
So I understand sort of why we're going in this direction. And also the fact that if the data can be used to actually process information faster than we can, and that's the power of it. It's that right now, or how historically the military went out, got all this reconnaissance, and it was coded, but in paper, written, right? It's, you come back with your map, you come back with your report, your 50-page report. You guys have seen in the movies where then people are reviewing those binders of data, right?
Yeah.
And deciding this or that. Should we or shouldn't we? It even happens in Iron Man. And so when you instead of me doing that data on my notebook, right, which is how the military always used to do it, now they're putting it in an iPad. So the second that it's in a tablet device, or even through their phone, then that is now in a database that can be that can inform us at scale. And so it does lead to better decision making. The pro of that is that we do less of the things that were the wrong thing to do. But again, there's always that intersection of, are we comfortable with, at the final second, right before the drone's going to decide to do a strike, for example, just like in Iron Man, you know, he deploys all the Iron Men, and they decide if they're going to actually fire on something. Do you want a human deciding if that's the right decision?
Right.
You know, and I think yes, but humans have their flaws too, right? And so it's always this pro and con of deciding, like, is this the right decision now when I see it with my eyes? And so right now we still have that element of there's an override by humans. But we're basically there. Again, the fantasticalness of the Iron Man suit and the speed at which it flies and all that stuff, we're not quite there, but we're definitely to the point where we you know, have a robot that we control at some central location that we can give orders and sort of watch what it's doing.
One of the major villains in the Avengers Iron Man saga was Ultron, and Ultron was able to, thanks to Tony Stark, grab a hold of information and access data across the globe within seconds, which he uses to his advantage. On the question of war, are we going to be fighting wars in person, or is it all cyber warfare going forward as well too? How close are we? Can you decode that for us?
Yeah, it actually is already cyber warfare. A lot of people would argue like the stuff that's happening on the cyber side of things is much more dangerous. It's actual influence and control as opposed to just like a point in time kind of, you know, shift of power. So that's happening already. And I think that, again, sort of, you look at what's happening with blockchain and decentralized technology is trying to make that harder for that to be a reality. So the problem with what happens in Iron Man is there is a mainframe, right? There's one place that you can plug into or have access to that gives you tremendous power, as opposed to it being distributed. It's similar to us having the briefcase that is handcuffed that has the nuclear codes, right? And that being in the hands of a single human. The more distributed it is, the harder it is to break, right? The harder it is to breach even. So that's the basics. And so that's, I think, our key. But we actually already are in more cyber warfare than anything. It's just not as visible, right? We don't see it. People don't get harmed as easily, but it's definitely influencing our minds quicker. And we're well in that cyber fight already.
When it comes to the positives of the benefit and the positives and benefits of the Iron Man suit, what's the solution for us?
Well, I mean, again, the positives are amazing, right? Like we're able to give people like a new lease on life. We're able to open up different opportunities. We're able to do things like, you know, autonomized vehicles, and like there's unbelievable positives, I think. But it's sort of similar with all of data and technology, is that you need to have morality and ethics built in. That there's a reason why we have things like the Bill of Rights and things like emancipations and constitutions, and right, like the way that we've existed as a society of humans in our greatest state is when we abide by certain rules that ensure that we keep equality and fairness and stuff like that, even though we fall short every single day. So that has to be built into the data and technology, in particular when you're weaponizing it. And the core of Iron Man is actually weaponry. And so that, I think, is at the core of it. We have to have the rules, the regulations sort of built in, hard coded in technology using the data. And then I think we'll be okay.
This has been another episode of Data Decoded. We just decoded Iron Man. For more great podcasts like this, join the movement. Go Rogue. RogueMatter.com. We will see everyone next time.